The stage is set. Your San Antonio Spurs will be taking on the Portland Trail Blazers this Sunday for the Spurs Game 1 opening round series. Welcome back to another episode of Spurs in Focus right here on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts. The list goes on and on. Go subscribe right now. And don't forget to go subscribe to the Spurs in Focus Substack completely free. Go sign up right now. We appreciate you making Spurs in Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. Seriously, come here first. Don't go to any other place. You want to come here first to Spurs in Focus. My name is Jeff Garcia, longtime Spurs writer in San Antonio, and I'm glad to have you all back. The stage is set, everybody. We now know who the Spurs will be taking on in the opening round playoff series this Sunday at the Frost. Spurs versus the Blazers. Yeah, the Portland Trail Blazers went into Phoenix and beat Phoenix. So many thought that the Phoenix Suns would be advancing to take on the Spurs. But do the Spurs have their hands full with Portland? What did some of the numbers say? What is a surprising player who has not played at all versus the Blazers this season? We're going to look at some overall thoughts, some overall opinions, basically our instant reaction to it, basically, of what the Spurs and the Blazers series could be looking like. We'll get into some numbers, give our predictions, and yes, we'll have a nerd segment, so no surprise there. We're going to really try to tie it into this series, Spurs Blazers. We're going to try our best. I pretty much gave up. I know I gave up, but our guest brought up a good point of a nerd comparison for this opening round series. Who is that guest? He is back, everybody. Mr. Rudy Campos of The Sports Answer. He is on X at The Sports Answer. And Rudy, the stage is set, buddy. Spurs Blazers. And by the way, Rudy texted me. He called it that it would be Blazers.
Well, funny you said you were like, hey, you know what? It's going to be Phoenix. Let's go ahead and, start wrapping it up. And I'm like, no, don't count Portland out, man. Portland is going to be there at the end. And sure enough, Denny Avia, he made you eat your words, Jeff. So I'm going to send him a bouquet of roses for that.
Yeah, I know. Well, he was missing all those free throws. They went on that offensive drought, and Phoenix was humming. I said, oh, man, they were playing in Phoenix. I said, I think it was like the Suns might got it. And I did not see that young Blazers team come back, but they did. But let's jump into it, Rudy. As mentioned, the stage is set. Portland, San Antonio this Sunday at the Frost. We'll get into our overall initial reactions to this stage. And let's start off with this. Might be competitive. It might be competitive. We'll look at the Spurs and Blazers this past regular season. The Spurs did win the series 2-1. Yeah. They were close games. Spurs won that first meeting 112-101. The Blazers won the next meeting 115-110. And finally, the Spurs beat the Blazers in the last meeting of the regular season 115-102. All close games. Rudy, you told me before we hit the record button, yeah, the Spurs didn't really dodge a bullet with Phoenix. They're going to have their hands full with Portland.
Yeah, Phoenix pretty much they peaked at the earlier part of the season. And I know a lot of Spurs fans look at Phoenix like, man, they're a tough out. Phoenix had their way with San Antonio, especially in the beginning part of the season. Definitely got a lot of players there. Devin Booker, Dylan Brooks is playing. He was playing at all-star level pretty much all year long. Mark Williams there. They got some shooters. But when you look at it, when Portland this year, they've been a real scrappy team. And if you notice, it's the teams that played physical, a la Phoenix at the beginning of the year with San Antonio, that gave the Spurs a lot of trouble. So this Portland squad, coached by, a former Spur and Thiago Splitter, he knows a little bit about being tough and getting some nasty, according to Coach Pop. So this Portland team is going to be a little bit more harder of an out than I believe Phoenix was. They've got great young talent. They've got guys that can rebound the ball. They've got two superb defenders. Matisse Thybulle and Kamara, they got two guys that can you're talking about guys that can probably really make it difficult for Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox. Those two guys can really make a difference. Scoot Henderson, a name of that Victor Wembanyama draft, is a guy that's been picking it up lately, especially towards the end of the season. So as much as Spurs fans are excited and as much as they're saying, you know what, we're overlooking this team, we're getting ready for the second round, it's still going to be a difficult battle between Portland and San Antonio.
Yeah, exactly. And just as much as the Spurs are balanced with youth and veteran presence, So are the Blazers. The Blazers do have quality veteran presence on their roster. You got a Holiday, you got Jeremy Grant, you got Splitter, who, although that was in the Pop era, but he kind of knows a little bit of how the Spurs operate, so he might have an edge there when it comes to at least the coaching matchup. You go down that line, and they do have quality. You mentioned Williams. They do have quality veterans, but they also got explosive young talent. And it begins with the guy who might cause Spurs fans to pull their hair out. That guy, Deni Avdija. This guy is a nightmare for the Spurs, hasn't he? He's been putting up monster numbers against the Spurs this regular season. Rudy, you got those numbers for us?
Yeah, so the biggest number that I do have against Deni Avdija is total points, man. In the 3 games that they played against San Antonio, he's averaged 31.6 points per game. I mean, you're talking rebounding wise, he's right around that 10 rebounds a game against San Antonio. So, yeah, I mean, his assist totals are, I think they're right around 5-6 assists a game. So he's having his way with San Antonio this season. You did mention there's a certain player that didn't play in those games that you'll get into in a little bit. But nonetheless, if you were watching that Portland Phoenix game, you saw the type of game that Deni can put up at any given time. And when he's hot, he makes it extremely tough. I don't care if you're the best defensive team in the league. When a player like that gets hot, everybody around them tends to benefit. Portland has a lot of shooters. Kamara can get hot from beyond the arc. Drew Holiday, we know Drew Holiday from, the Milwaukee Bucks championship days and, Boston Celtics as well. So, I mean, these guys can definitely make it difficult. But if Deni's hot, let's put it this way. I know we're not going to get predictions and I'm going to save them, but Deni could easily win a game or 2 for Portland on his own. That's how hot and that's how good of a player. He should be all NBA, which I doubt he gets. But be sure to give him some love, man, because this guy is definitely going to be one of the guys in the future in the league here.
Yeah. As Rudy mentioned, 31 points per game versus the Spurs this season, along with 8 assists, 7.3 rebounds in the 3 games versus the Spurs this season. You look at the numbers he put up against San Antonio. We just said the average, but he threw up 37 points in their first meeting, 29 in their second, 29 in the third. I mean, he can light them up. And, the good thing about it, well, it's the bad thing about it for the Spurs side of things, that he keeps turnovers a minimum. The most turnovers he's had in a game versus San Antonio has been 6, and he only did that twice. So he definitely values the ball versus San Antonio. He is the head of the snake for that Blazers team, and he earned it. He an all-star this year. Hyper competitive. I mean, this. He will argue every freaking foul call. That's not not in his favor. Yeah. So it begins and ends with him. Now, Victor Wembanyama surprisingly did not play against the Spurs. I mean, against the Blazers. Excuse me. This past regular season at all. At all. So I want to look at those numbers that you just mentioned, which you said, but I also want to put a little asterisk next to it because he didn't have to go in the paint with Victor Wembanyama there waiting for him. I also, Rudy and I were surprised. Victor did not play at all versus the Blazers this past regular season. But I think his presence, the guy you see on your screen right now, number 1, may have something to say about Avdija's numbers against the Spurs this season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the defensive player of the year, which we're hoping is defensive player of the year this year, makes a huge difference. He turns away a lot of shots. He makes it difficult when you get to the paint. Deni's biggest thing is getting to the paint, being very crafty around the rim. He may not put up 31 points a game in the series, but I mean, he's still good for about 24, 25, 26, maybe around that mark right there. Victor does make it very difficult. And you brought up a great point because, in the Spurs that's the difference between the Spurs winning by, maybe 20, 22 points against Portland this season, but also, where Spurs fans may, again, feel a little bit more comfortable playing against Portland in the 2 losses that Portland had, Jeff. One loss they had 16 turnovers, the other loss they had 18 turnovers. Think about it. If you cut those turnovers down, which this Portland team going into the playoffs could potentially do with Thiago at the helm, that could be a whole difference maker right there, whether Victor plays or not. And I'm not trying to hype up Portland, but I mean, there are factors on both sides of the ball, but definitely Victor playing in these games, I think it makes it a little bit easier for San Antonio, but I don't want to think like that, put it that way, because it's playoff time, man. Basketball is
It
different. As you
is.
saw from those two games, very, very physical. Physicality is number one on everybody's mind come
Yeah.
playoffs. So can the team hold up with the physical play? We're gonna find out.
Yeah, exactly. And look, not at the level of Wemby, but the Blazers do have a big man that can clog the paint and get physical with
Yes.
him, and that is
Donovan
Donovan
Clingan.
Clingan, Steph Castle's former teammate there at UConn.
Mhm.
So that'll be interesting to see how that handles. Wemby, you tend to do well versus bigs his size. I wonder if the Blazers may go with Jeremy Grant, maybe go smaller with the Kamara, Grant
Yeah.
Williams. How do you think the Blazers are going to play that? They just, hey, Donovan, good luck, or try to play a
No,
smaller guy in them.
no, I mean, so it's kind of funny because I had a talk with our good friend Derek Irvin earlier, and I told him, when you look at Wemby's number, or actually, I was talking about Nikola Jokic. I said, when you look at Jokic, his numbers against the best defensive players, which are Wemby, Rudy Gobert, big guys, Evan Mobley, are off the charts. But when he plays a player like Draymond Green, who's a
Mm-hmm.
lot shorter, he tends to struggle. We see the exact same thing with Wemby. He tends to struggle against Draymond Green from time to time. Remember, the closer you are to the floor, the harder it is for you to move, especially
Mm-hmm.
at Wemby's height. So you may see a guy like you mentioned, Kamara, even Matisse Thybulle. These guys may guard Wemby from time to
Mm-hmm.
time, and you're going to see a height difference. But the what is center of gravity, the lower you are to the floor. I mean, that's where these guys are going to
Right.
probably be more beneficial. I think Klingon and also Williams are going to get the nod. Don't forget they do have a rookie in Yang Hansen who is pretty darn tall as well. So I mean, they've got bodies that can definitely use
Yeah.
against Wemby. But more so ever, they're going to start off with Klingon. Don't be surprised if you even see maybe the Blazers go to a zone solid
Mm.
defense as well, because one thing to remember too is San Antonio is not the greatest three-point shooting team in the league. So making them beat you from the outside might be Tiago's way to beat the
Mm-hmm.
Spurs in a couple of these games here.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, just a quick note about Denny. He dropped a triple-double on the Spurs in their January 3rd meeting,
Yeah, he
where the
did.
Blazers did win 115 and 110. Just real quick, just how much he can be a headache here. Interesting too. Neither team, I think neither team won at home. I think that's
Mm-mm.
right. Spurs went into the Blazers gym and beat them. Blazers went into the Spurs gym and beat them at there. And then I think it's a flip. No, I'm sorry. No, the Blazers did beat. No, the Spurs did beat
Beat
the
him at home. Yeah, the
beat them at
last game of
home.
the
Right?
season.
Yeah, the last game at home. So there's that. So mm, yeah, yeah. The Spurs did beat the Portland Trailblazers. There you go. At home with the Blazers getting that lone road win in San Antonio. So it's interesting how that all shook out there.
Yeah.
You look overall throughout these meetings in the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
the Spurs had a higher effective field goal percentage, minimal turnovers. By the way, I don't think that gets highlighted enough how the Spurs wrapped up the season top 5 in minimal turnovers in the NBA.
Yeah.
So that bodes well for them. They did dominate the paint even without Victor Wembanyama, and as well as fast break points there too. And also too, just look at some of the other numbers here. I got them right here. Offensively, the Blazers averaged 106 points per game versus the Spurs, while the Spurs averaged 112 versus the Blazers. So again, very, very close games here. Also note too, the Spurs 112-101 win on April 8th was without Wemby and Steph Castle. It was De'Aaron Fox that led the team with 25 points, which brings me to the guard spots. We know Wemby's going to be a problem. We get that. Yay, Wemby, do what you got to do. But something tells me the guards in the two teams may have maybe the biggest factor in who wins and who loses. Because you got Castle, Fox, and Harper going up against guys like a proven veteran, Holiday, You mentioned Scoot Henderson.
Mhm.
Do you think it's lopsided towards the Spurs in this department?
On paper, yes. On
Mm-hmm.
paper, definitely yes. The Spurs have the advantage. No doubt in my mind that they do. Harper's been playing at all rookie NBA first team,
Mm-hmm.
level all season long. Uh, so yeah, I give the Spurs trio a nod, but as mentioned before, you got two guys in Thibault and Kamara who are,
Mm-hmm.
above average, well above average defenders. They can make it tough for a lot of these guys here. So I'll put it this way. I hope I'm wrong, but I expect to see struggles from maybe one or two of the Spurs guards from time to time. May not be every game, but you may see Harper struggle a little bit. You may see De'Aaron Fox, who has struggled towards the end of the season a little bit. He may struggle, against some of these defenders, but overall, I mean, either way, you're going to get two of these guys are going to be hot no matter what. I mean,
Yeah.
I expect Stephon Castle to actually take it up a notch. And I'll even go out on a limb and I'll throw it out there that I know we're going to discuss this more before the series kicks off anyway, but I actually expect Stephon Castle to have a monster series against Portland. So, yeah, I'd give the edge to the Spurs, no doubt about it. But again,
Yeah.
to see maybe one or two struggle, it probably will happen.
Yeah. All right. So it's all about how you enter the playoffs, right, everybody?
Mhm.
It's exactly how it is. All right. So we know the Spurs were red hot going into the postseason, right? I'm sure they lost the last game versus Denver. But overall, I mean, they had the best record coming out of the All-Star break. Just were just mopping the floor with opponents. But how were the Blazers? How were the Blazers going into this postseason?
Mhm.
Let's look at some of their numbers here. So these were their last five game stats here. You see on your screen, everybody. Rudy, you look at that, and 117 points per game in their last five.
Mhm.
And like I mentioned, they did put up 106, so they definitely versus the Spurs in their meetings. They upped the points there. Anything stands out for you right off the bat when you look at the numbers, how they close out their regular season?
Shooting. I mean, the 3-point shooting
Yeah, look at
easily. I
that.
mean, they're a team that can knock down the three ball. They
Mm-hmm.
got a ton of guys that can. Denny can knock it down. Even Klingon. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Klingon can knock down that three ball. So that's going to be a factor for the Blazers going into
Yeah.
the San Antonio series. Is their 3-point shooting? Can they get hot at the right time? Also, steals, man. I mean, like I mentioned before, I've mentioned all of a show long here on Spurs and Focus is
Yeah, look
they
at
got
that.
guys that can defend, and that shows you right there. They're seventh in steals in these last 5 games. They get after the ball. They got that rugged. They got that dog in them, is what the kids say. So, yeah, that's what stands out to me. And the other part that doesn't really show on the stats is the heart, man. I mean, this team plays every single night with their backs against the wall. So, again, the Spurs are going to get tested early because, like I mentioned, the defensive side. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to be physical. They're going to play Wemby physical. They're going to play everybody physical. And it shows the last 5 games. I mean, they're 6 and blocked as well. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
their defensive intensity is right up there with San Antonio, which, again, when you're physical with this team, they tend to kind of not play up to par. So we'll
Yeah.
see how it really goes.
To the Spurs' credit, though, they did up their physicality throughout the season. That was a big
Mhm.
knock on the Spurs dating even back to the preseason. That was kind of a common thread that Mitch would always go to after every loss. Well, after every game, because they rarely lost this season. But he
Yeah.
was, they kind of beat us in their physicality. We didn't match their physicality. That got better throughout the season. For me, Rudy, when I look at the Blazers' last five and what I guess in this case puts a smile on Spurs fans and the Spurs as well, is the turnovers.
Mhm.
Portland could not valley the ball whatsoever. Look at that. 20th near the bottom of the barrel in the NBA at 15.4 turnover percentage there. So they definitely self-inflicted wounds that the Spurs can take advantage of, get easy buckets, scoring in transition. I like that for the Spurs. It bodes well for them. I think that stands out for me. I think the Spurs should take advantage of that as well. And you look overall how they close out their regular season, the Blazers. That is, they won their last 2 games.
Yeah.
There's that. If you want to go really dig deeper, they were 3-1 in their last 4 games before the end of the season. Actually, they were actually 5-1. So there you go. They were humming already. They were getting going. And interesting though, when I looked overall though at this Blazers squad, I was interested. Okay, well, how do they do against the top teams in the NBA? So according to Pivot Fade, the top 5 teams in their stats were the Thunder, the Pistons, the Spurs, the Celtics, and the Knicks. Well, the Blazers were 3-10 versus that core group right there. So they definitely struggled against the cream of the crop versus the NBA. Unfortunately, one of those 3 wins for the Blazers was against the Spurs there. So there's that. And you look at how they fared versus the top 5 teams in the NBA. They went, as mentioned, 3-10. Their net rating was a minus 10.3. Their offensive rating was 106.2. They couldn't score against the top 5 teams in the league. But, Rudy, their defensive rating versus the top teams in the NBA, according to Pivot Fade, 7th in the NBA, 116.5. Ultimately, is it going to come down to the defense for both teams here?
Ultimately, yes. I mean, it's going to be coming down to defense, but what kind of rounds it out is what you said. Portland, yes, they can score the basketball, but they can't score enough points is what it is. And, hey, well, they average 116, 117. That's a lot of points. Technically it is, but again, when you've got a guy like Victor that's coming back to play against Portland because he hadn't played him against them all year, that 117 they average comes down maybe against the Spurs, maybe like 104, 105. I mean, he makes that much of a difference. So I think what it is, the funny part is they beat Phoenix, obviously, in the play-in game to get to play San Antonio. You saw the physicality there. Phoenix is a very viable scoring team. You got a bunch of scorers on that team. They can get it done. And you saw how scrappy Portland was. And that's kind of what I expect them to see against San Antonio. But again, defense is going to be the key. You're having 2 of the better defensive teams in the league play against each other. But the Spurs, I mean, they score at will. And the good thing about San Antonio is when they have a lead, especially against a team that's, not one of the top teams in the league, they tend to just keep pounding the basketball, putting up point after point after point. And that's something that I think is going to continue in this series. So defense is key, but again, Portland, to me, they don't have enough offense to compete with San Antonio right now.
Offense has never been a problem for the Spurs at all. Well, maybe for a little while during the regular season. Remember that moment where they just couldn't hit the side of the barn?
We're not in the Duncan era no more, where it was 85
exactly.
points. So,
exactly. But when it comes to offense, the Spurs should be okay. They have how many players averaging double figures to close out the regular season? I mean, 5 or 6. It was just ridiculous. As the kids say, everybody ate for the Spurs this season, and they did. Offense has never been an issue. It's going to be defense for this Spurs team going against the Blazers, because as we mentioned and highlighted, some of the numbers have shown Blazers can be a very good defensive team.
Yeah.
I want to go back. I'm really looking at those guards from Thibault to Holiday to Kamara. I don't know. Scoot's kind of, I guess.
Well, he's been playing really good lately. So I would give him. I mean, we even forgot Shaden Sharp. I mean, Shaden Sharp is a young guy. He's a high flyer. He can get going as well. So, I mean, they've got 4 or 5 guys that can make it super tough for San Antonio on the guard position.
Exactly. We're talking with Rudy Campos of the Sports Answer right here on Spurs in Focus. Kind of give it our general overall view reaction to the Spurs taking on the Blazers this Sunday, now that we know who the opponent will be at the Frost. We'll get into the nitty-gritty later on. We're going to have a special roundtable show to close out the week where we'll dive into X factors, we'll dive into coaching matchup, all that good stuff. For this episode, it's just more of a generic overview before we dive deeper later this week. One more thing before we give our predictions about this squad, this matchup, I should say, is we looked at the numbers. We looked at the offense. We looked at the defense. But, my God, I got a feeling if the Spurs let their foot off the gas pedal even for a second, this Blazers team can just pounce on that. They showed it versus Phoenix. I thought the game was in the bag. As I mentioned, I texted you saying, let's start recording just like Phoenix is going to get it. A mistake here, a mistake there, and they took advantage of that. Now, granted, Phoenix is not San Antonio. I understand that. But what was that old saying? Never count out the size of the dog in the fight or something like that. The heart of the
Yeah.
dog in the fight. And I think that goes back to your scrappiness comment about the Blazers. I don't think the Spurs will let their guard down. I don't see it. But again, just words to the wise Spurs. This Blazers team, they're probably going in there feeling like, hey, we kept it competitive versus the Spurs in 3 regular season meetings. We beat them in San Antonio. But Blazers, you did not play a team with Wemby at all this season. That is a huge, huge thing they got to plan for. I think the Blazers have to do more adjustments than the Spurs have to do adjustments to the Blazers. I think the Spurs can go out there and play their game that we saw during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Blazers got to make the right adjustments because that guy, I'll put him on your screen one more time, Rudy. They did not play that guy at all this regular season. That changes everything for them. With that being said, I'm going to go Spurs in 5. What do you think?
I'm going to say 5. I'm going to be nice and say the gentleman's sweep at 5. Would it shock me if they went to 6? I don't think so. I mean, I think worst case scenario, it's 6 games, but I think 5. I think Portland gets a game in there. And I mean, honestly, I may say maybe like game 3 or 4 is where Portland wins 1 game. San Antonio closes out at 5. Would you be more shocked that it goes to 6, or would you be more shocked that if it's a sweep? Because I think it would actually shock
6.
me if there was 6.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if they got swept. It wouldn't shock me at all. But I just don't feel like Portland will get swept. If they do, then by all means, great, because then the Spurs have to wait for Minnesota, Denver, which that's going to be 7 games more than likely regardless. So I'd like a 4-game sweep for San Antonio, give them extra rest, but I think I'm with you. It's got to be 5 games, I think.
Yeah. I think what Portland has to really take advantage of is they have athletic wings that can throw out San Antonio. They do have a scoring punch. We mentioned Denny, Sharp, Kamara. They have guys that can give energy and defense, but the Spurs also have guys that can counter that with energy and defense. They have athletic wings, so do the Spurs, from Keldon to Vassell to now Carter Bryant in there. Now, the Wemby factor for the Portland is a bigger headache for them. Spurs, Clingan is good, but he's not mobile as Wemby is at all. So the Spurs should be okay in that matchup.
He's not, but the way Clingan shoots the ball, Jeff, don't forget, I mean, he can pull Wemby out of the paint. So, I mean, you've got quick guards like Scoot and Drew Holiday that can get to the rim, albeit Wemby may not be able to protect the paint, because if Clingan is hanging around the 3-point line, then you have some open layups there that they can actually expose against San Antonio. So you're right. I'm gonna just say you're right on the Wemby part, but I think we need to see exactly how Portland's going to play. And remember, Splitter, he knows the Spurs system,
right.
So he's going to know to take Wemby out of the paint when they're on offense is probably his best chance at winning. So you may be looking at a 5 out type of offense for Portland.
And ultimately, also, we did say ultimately it may come down to the defensive side of things, who plays a better defense here, because as we showed the numbers, the Blazers do pose a problem defensively. But I feel like this is going to be a common thread throughout every series that the Spurs advance. If they advance to the semifinals, I'm going to say this, because I'm going to start saying it right now. They got more depth than Portland. They got a lot more depth than the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on that. The depth factor heavily towards the Spurs' favor. Portland, they're good, but they don't have the depth as the Spurs do.
On paper, they do. On paper, Portland does.
I mean, think so?
I'm not going to write them off. I mean, I'm not going to write them off. Robert Williams can be a really big headache for any team that he plays against. When you're bringing Matisse Thybulle off the bench, you're also bringing Shaedon Sharpe off the bench for Portland. They've got some players now. They're not 9, 10, 11 deep like San Antonio are, because, I mean, now you're talking about Kelly Olynyk as your 11th player, and it's like, well, Kelly could probably be a starter on a 15, 16 of the teams in the league right now if he needed to be. So they're not that far in depth, but, again, Portland doesn't have the depth, but they have players that can come in off the bench to put a little scare into San Antonio. But you're right. I mean, San Antonio and Denver are the only two teams that have, 1 through 10, 1 through 11, that can come in and just make a difference right away.
What I feel like this team is, the Spurs, that is in for kind of a scrap. They're in for a scrap.
I hope so. I think
it's your first.
It's Mitch Johnson's first playoff series. It's the first playoff series for a lot of these guys on the team. They're getting their first experience. I prefer Portland over Phoenix because I think Phoenix is, let me put it this way. Dylan Brooks plays for Phoenix. I don't need injuries to happen to San Antonio in that first round. Dylan Brooks plays with no emphasis on protection of players. So I really don't like that. I like them playing Portland. You're going to get the physicality. You're going to get one of the better defenders in the better defensive teams in the league. You're going to get a team that is just going to just pound the rock similar to what San Antonio does, try to make it tough on you. So for me, it's best that they get a team like that because they're going to get that playoff atmosphere very early than, coming in and getting a team like Phoenix where it's going to be physical, but you don't really, it's not going to be as tough, I feel. Portland's going to make it a little bit tougher, but again, I love the fact because it's going to give them that playoff atmosphere that they're going to need to go on in the future of the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like the Spurs should win the series, likely will, but it ain't going to be that easy. I think every game, I think for a good chunk of the games, we're going to be biting our fingernails like, oh man, here we go. Like that. Like,
perfect question for you then. Do you think the Spurs come out flat in the first game?
No.
At
all. No.
I think they'll be. I think they might.
I think they'll be jittery, but I don't think that. No, I think they're going to be too hyped. That's what I'm more worried about. Too hyped.
Should we put a little Spurs in Focus Sports Answer friendly bet? I think the Blazers lead after the first quarter.
I think Spurs lead after the first quarter.
We can do a little friendly bet. We'll do a little friendly. You got so you're a Demon Slayer fan like me.
Yeah.
I was able to pull one of the rare figures for Demon Slayer. Mm-hmm. So I will give you my Gyoku rare figure right here.
See, now you say rare figures. And I don't
know if right here.
Rare figure.
No, I mean, I got two, so I don't mind giving one up to you.
I would wager. Literally, this is his name, everybody. Dinobot.
Yeah.
That was his name, Dinobot.
So Dino, and then for the Gyoku rare.
Okay. I'm going to give up Dinobot there.
So, yeah, that's what. And again, I'm not saying the Spurs are going to lose, but I mean, I think Portland, they come out hot. They come out hyped up. They come out ready. Spurs come out ready, yada, yada, yada. But I think, it may be like 29-28.
All right. I got Spurs up at end of one. All right. Well, those are our overall thoughts on the Spurs Blazers series. It's about to set this Sunday at the Frost. Again, but we need to hear from you. What do you think about this series? Give us your overall thoughts. Maybe some stats that we didn't highlight. Let Rudy know on X at The Sports Answer. Let me know on X at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Subscribe to Spurs in Focus. Rudy's buying everybody subscriptions today. If you hit subscribe, the bill goes to him. Yep. So go do that right now. Don't forget to subscribe to Spurs in Focus show on YouTube, Pocket Cast, Amazon, YouTube Music. Seriously, there's something there too. Pick a platform. Spurs in Focus is likely there. All right. It's time to get nerdy, everybody. Let's do it. So Rudy and I were struggling with, I was struggling with the question. I asked Rudy before I hit record. I go, what would be a nerd comparison for Spurs Blazers series? I was struggling. I said, I'm probably going to give up that topic because I can't think of one. But I finally thought of one. I thought of one during our talk about this series.
I told you.
So here's my nerd comparison to Spurs Blazers. So everybody knows, you can see behind me, I'm an anime fan. I host anime cons in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
I can't keep up with all of them. There's just too many, but I do at least get the highlights. And one of my love is One Punch Man. Now, One Punch Man is, in this situation, the Spurs, right? Beating everybody up as the Spurs did throughout the regular season. Seemingly invincible as the Spurs were seemingly invincible throughout the regular season. So, but if you go in the season one, there was one thing that actually beat One Punch Man and doesn't get highlighted enough. And they're the Blazers. It was the episode where he was in his apartment, minding his business, and a little fly comes in, and with all his power, he smashes the fly. Takes his hand up, the fly moves around. He goes, he whacks it again. The fly moves around again. He's getting frustrated. I can't kill this fly. I can't kill this fly. Now he takes out the big guns. In this case, it would be Wemby. This fly, the spray, the roach spray, running after it, spraying it. It was a problem for One Punch Man. It was an irritant. It was a gnat. It was just getting on his nerves. I think that's a great comparison for this Spurs Blazers game. One Punch Man versus the fly that he had in his apartment. Or in this case, the Spurs having the fly, the Blazers go to their gym, the Frost, and open up the series. What about you, Rudy?
So I like that it is, I went X-Men, X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants because why? I mean, Magneto, Tiago Splitter, former Spur. Obviously, we all know Professor X and Magneto, friends, brothers technically, by, just that kind of a friendship. So
Sure.
Plus, you got guys like Blake Wesley, CD Sissoko, part of Portland. So
that's right.
Mutants all together, basically. But then you kind of brought up anime, and I started thinking, I'm currently watching this show. I mean, could you maybe see a little bit of Invincible? Spurs, they are Mark and they are invincible, but they take beatings. They're going to take a beating left and right. And at the end, they're going to win. But that's what I like about, this team is that they, no matter how many times you think, God, they're going to get beat, they always seem to come back. And then when they lose, similar to what Invincible has lost a couple of times in the series, they bounce back and they win the next, few fights or whatever. But for me, it's that, but it's also, like I said, the X-Men and Brotherhood of Mutants. I mean, it's two teams that technically know each other. I mean, coaching wise, then you got players on both ends. So I think that's what we're shaping up to be here for Portland and San Antonio. I mean, the destruction, how bad do you think the destruction is? Like, because I think it might be, Invincible type destruction where heads are getting smashed and, I don't know, man. I might use Invincible a lot. You got me into that show, and I'm kind of freaking out a little bit about that.
It's good. It's a good show. It's a good series. I recommend everyone to watch Invincible on Amazon there. But that's a good comparison. Although I would have, part of me really wanted to see Phoenix advance because of Dylan Brooks running his mouth against Wemby. Oh, I got Wemby's number. I really wanted to see that revenge game.
I really didn't want that. I did not. I
wanted that bad.
The problem is that you're going to get a lot of cheap shots from Dylan Brooks, and that just does not sit well in my stomach, man. I mean,
all right. It's a mood, I guess. It ain't going to happen, but
if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I'll say that.
I wanted Wemby to get his revenge game. That's what I wanted to see.
Raise the trophy and show him the ring next year.
There you go.
That's a good best revenge you can get.
All right, there's your quick nerd segment right here on Spurs in Focus. Hey, y'all got a nerd comparison for this Spurs Blazers series? Let us know. Let Rudy know on X at The Sports Answer. Let me know on X at Jeff G. Spurs Zone. Rudy, what's going on at The Answer?
Yeah, so at The Answer, we've got our Friday drive show. We're going to be live in studio. It's going to be myself, and welcome back Derek Irvin. He's been coaching and training a lot of kids, so he's going to finally be back on our Friday drive show for the Sports Answer. You can catch us on Answer Now TV, where we go live on Fridays as well as Sunday mornings. I'm starting to see a lot of people, old listeners, starting to say, hey, you're back on the air. Yeah, we are back on the air, specifically Sunday mornings. You can catch us on Answer Now TV. Not only that, you can also catch Spurs in Focus, this show right here with Jeff Garcia that gets played on Answer Now TV. So, yeah, man, it's going to be playoff talk. Derek's been texting me all day and all night, really, and he's pretty geared up for these playoff series. We'll get into nothing but Spurs and playoff talk for all you guys out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow Rudy on X at The Sports Answer for the latest in the world of sports, including the Spurs, so much more. He's the guy you want to go to. And we're not done with Rudy. I believe later on this week, as mentioned, we're going to have a roundtable to close out the week here at Spurs in Focus, talking about Game 1 more in depth. All right. This was just kind of our overall view, thoughts, some numbers to throw at you to get the brain cooking, get the mind thinking before we have our roundtable show. As of now, it'll be myself, the gentleman you see on your screen right now, Rudy Campos, and James Espinosa of the Sunday Sports Rush out in Corpus. So all three of us are going to get together, talk about just everything that we did not cover, from the coaching matchup, X factors, who scares the bleep out of us on the other side of the court there. all that good stuff, probably predictions and whatnot. So we'll look forward to that as well. But there should be, I'm pretty sure there will be a new episode of Spurs in Focus for tomorrow. And we'll keep you posted on that. But if not, definitely look forward to the end of the week show for sure. That should be a good one there. And that puts a wrap on this episode of Spurs in Focus. As always, we thank y'all for making Spurs in Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. Don't go to any other shows. You just want to come here to Spurs in Focus. Subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Pocket Cast, Amazon Podcast. The list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. And go to Spurs in Focus Substack completely free. Why? Because Rudy's paying for everybody who subscribes. Yep. If you hit subscribe, the bill automatically goes to his PayPal, and he has to pay. So deplete his bank account, everybody, right now. Go hit subscribe at Spurs in Focus on Substack, completely free. And with that, we thank you for making Spurs in Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. So for Mr. Rudy Invincible Campos, I am Jeff Garcia, and now you're in focus with Spurs in Focus.